2 seeds of different varieties grown in small food containers. How did it go and how much food did it grow? The answers in today's video. Hey everyone, Natissa here, and welcome back to You Can Grow Too. This video is the conclusion of the 2025 Single Seed Challenge. And before I get into the results and all of my notes, here's just a little overview of what is the Single Seed Challenge. And as a gardener, we plant our seeds, usually multiple, and we watch the plants grow, and that's amazing in itself. But the Single Seed Challenge is all about choosing what you want to grow, and you choose one single seed to plant. You watch that seed germinate, and you follow the life cycle of that plant from the germination all the way to harvest. Sometimes it ends well and sometimes it doesn't, but either way, to watch a plant grow and to be focused on it is just a whole other experience in itself. It is also something that you can share with other fellow gardeners by posting the journey of your plant from that single seed by using the hashtag Single Seed Challenge and whatever year we are in. And that is what I did. I did a lot of the updates in my garden tours that I do throughout the season, along with my Instagram. And that is where I posted a lot of the updates that were happening in that moment. And I know some of you enjoyed following along with that. But like I said, things don't happen right all the time. Sometimes the plant dies prematurely. Sometimes the seed doesn't even germinate and you can start over. Bottom line, it's just about appreciating the life cycle of a plant and everything it goes through. So I did that this year, and I decided to go with planting noodle beans. Noodle beans grow very well here in my climate of high heat and high humidity, especially during our summertime. And this year I thought, I'm going to choose 2 different varieties and compare them, how they grow and how much food production can I get from each. I did my tried and true Thai soldier bean along with another noodle bean that is starting to look promising to me, and that is the Guyana long bean. But the new thing I was doing this year was, instead of planting them in one large container or planting them in ground, I decided to go with 2 small food containers. I've always been very interested in growing in food containers or just smaller spaces for those that might not have a large yard, might not have acreage, so that way you can grow too. I've done a video on growing in food containers, how I did it, why I did it, and did I find it worth it to do. And I will put this video at the end of this one along with a link down in the description. So yeah, very interested to try this year's Single Seed Challenge in food containers. And with noodle beans, I know that they are very productive for me because, like I said, I have a good climate for them. So I was very excited to try them out. So it began on April 1st, 2025. I chose a bean from my Thai soldier long bean and 1 bean from my Guyana noodle bean. And with beans, in my experience, the seeds do germinate fast. And about 3 days later, on April 4th, we had our first germinated seed, and it was the Guyana long bean. And I wondered why this could be. I mean, beans seeds, they can last a while, and you can plant, from the same batch year after year for a long time, or decently long time, in my experience. But I did note that yes, Guyana long bean germinated first, and maybe it was because it was fresher seed that I saved the year before. But I didn't think too hard on that because the next day, April 5th, the Thai soldier long bean did germinate. It was fun to watch these grow, and it's so funny with plants because, as you see them every day, which I did with my Single Seed Challenge, because that's part of the challenge is focusing on these plants, you still start to, I don't know, because you're seeing a bit each day, you're not noticing the difference, but it was about 2 weeks later, roughly April 20th to the 23rd, I noticed that these plants were growing, and they were growing pretty fast. I noticed the Guyana long bean was growing a little bit more, showing more growth, but the Thai soldier bean was a little behind, but still looked really good. And I remember last year's experience with the Thai soldier long bean is it did have a slow start, but it finished strong, so I wasn't too worried about that. It was still the beginning. Almost 1 month later from planting, it was April 29th, and it was trellising day. So I took the single seed challenge food containers that I have been sitting outside and I moved them into what I call my cornerstone bed where I had a trellis ready for them. The Guyana long bean was taller and it was definitely growing faster, so it seemed. And the Thai soldier long bean still was a very strong looking plant, just more compact. Oh, little Luna Bell. Hi Luna Bell, you're a good girl. And I thought it'd be fun to compare my in-ground noodle beans, because I still was growing noodle beans in the garden, because that is a big producing plant for here in my summertime. And I thought, well, I did plant them the same day as my single seed challenge, and I did plant a few beans, a few days later just to ensure that I had a crop in the garden. And I was thinking while we did this at the same time, why not compare my single seed challenge food container plants with my in-ground noodle bean plants. So that is what we did as well. And I noticed as time went on toward the beginning that the in-ground plants were really growing slower than my in the food container planted noodle beans. My only figurings of this was it wasn't raining quite yet, and yes, I was watering the garden, but as I always say in my videos, and it's so true, I have very sandy soil, I do mulch, it's just never enough, and the ground gets dry really quick, especially if we're not getting rain, and we, at this point in spring, just not getting any rain at all. But with my single seed challenge planted in the food containers, I was watching them more regularly, watering them more regularly, and I noticed that surprisingly, the soil in those food containers were pretty moist. But I still wasn't worried at all because I remember last year, and it happened again this year, that the in-ground beans were just taking longer to take off, to start growing. But I was just really hoping those rains would come. Not too long from getting our single seed challenges to the trellis, we had our first latch, and it was on May 8th. And it was, not surprisingly, the Guyana long bean that latched to the trellis first. This was probably about the time that I really noticed something interesting with the Thai soldier long bean, and that is it was staying very compact, almost like a bush style bean. It was starting to branch off in multiple places, but it looked very healthy and sturdy. And I completely forgot. When I purchased these beans, it happened to be through Baker Creek, and I've grown these beans for a number of years. But I completely forgot that on the back of the description, it says that they are bush-style beans. And I quickly found out in the years of growing them that for me, they are not bush beans at all. They are crazy vigorous growers that need a lot of trellis room. And it's not just me, because in the reviews I have seen everybody say pretty much the same thing, and on videos I see of other gardeners as well, that when they grow these beans they are extremely vigorous and they grow way taller than me and outproduce my trellis space. So I was very shocked to see that they were staying very compact, but still very healthy. And a little bit later, toward the middle of May, I saw a bit of aphids starting to attack the Guyana long bean. That's why I like my Thai soldier long bean. That's why it's my tried and true, is because aphids do not bother it at all. I've seen so many aphids and critters, start to form on them and they just disappear. Probably because of ladybugs or whatever other bug that comes and eats the aphids. But I've always grown noodle beans, multiple varieties, and a lot of them do get succumbed to aphids. So I was a little concerned, but I didn't want to mess with it at all because I also want to see how well the Guyana long bean could do, because this is a noodle bean I am experimenting with. But it ended up being okay. I didn't really see the aphids again till later. And the Thai soldier bean was still looking like a bush bean, but still looking good. Then on May 20th, we got our first bloom, and it was actually from our 2-foot tall Thai soldier bush bean that produced the first flower. And later that evening, I started noticing even more buds starting to show up all over the branches that this little bush plant was producing. And I noticed something else, and it was something I've never seen before. Hopefully I have good enough pictures to show you because it was really hard to get a good picture of these. It was a pest, or I assume a pest, that I've never seen before. It was green and kind of reminded me of an aphid. They weren't walking around on the plants at all, but I started seeing these on my Thai soldier longbean, and it would just they just stayed stationary at certain points on the plant. They almost looked fuzzy, maybe a sort of triangular shape. That's the best way I can describe them. Never saw them before, tried to look them up on the internet, just nothing was showing up. And I did notice that there were ants on the plant as well. So I didn't know if it was like an aphid situation. You know, when you get aphids on your plants, they have a secretion that ants come and harvest, and then the aphids protect the ants, that whole relationship. I wasn't sure if these mystery pests were doing the same thing or not, but it was interesting to see that, well, number one, that I've never seen them before, but also to see the ants going up and down the plant without aphids on it, but these mystery bugs. So I don't know, just something interesting to notice. And then finally, May 22nd, we got our first bean, and yes, it was from the Thai soldier longbean, that little plant. We didn't harvest from it yet, but you could see the bean forming. And still, those weird bugs were on there, and I thought, you know, let's try to spray them off with a water hose, and from what I noticed, they did not budge. So I did kind of maybe take a little stick and just kind of knock them off, and you could see them moving around a little bit, but for the most part on the plant they literally just stayed right in their spot. They're actually pretty hard to notice. I'm surprised I saw them. And then finally, May 29th, we had our first bean harvest, and it was from our Thai soldier longbean, still being a bush plant and still having those mystery bugs. And interesting note that this was also the first noodle bean harvest of the season. Then on June 7th, we had our first Guyana longbean harvest. And the neat thing with these beans is that the actual bean can reach 3 feet long. And my largest bean that I harvested from this plant was actually 2 foot 4 inches. I actually harvested 2 beans that day, and I weighed them, and together it was 1.7 ounces. That's a lot for just 2 beans. I also weighed the beans from the first harvest of the Thai soldier longbeans, and it was 0.3 ounces. As I compared the amount of beans that we harvested from the first harvest of each bean, it was interesting to note that for the Guyana, it was definitely more bean in that harvest, and I began to think, are we going to get a lot of harvest from these beans? Were we going to get more food from the Guyana? Still on June 7th, I did compare our in-ground noodle beans with the single seed challenge ones, and they're starting to grow more. We were getting some rain, so again, I wasn't worried, but it was interesting to note that they were coming slower. I did see a bean forming, and it was the Guyana longbean that was forming first for the in-ground beans. I also took note that I did have a large amaranth plant growing next to it. I didn't anticipate it to get that big, so I don't know if that also casted a bit more shade in that area, because that's something also to note as well with those in-ground noodle beans. Just like I said, just having fun comparing them with the single seed challenge, is that we also get some shade from our oak tree there. So the shade could have stunted the growth a little bit, but with that amaranth next to it, it was probably getting more shade than it normally gets. But like I said, we were getting more rain, and that really helped those in-ground noodle beans a lot. On June 16th, I started comparing how the plants looked, just to see the differences because they're different varieties. And I noticed with the Thai soldier longbean, the leaves looked a little larger, and the color, the green color, was not as dark. And the Guyana longbean, just a little bit of a smaller leaf, but the leaves were dark. And I also started noticing rust and aphids being more of a problem on our Guyana longbean. This was probably the time where things started going downhill for my single seed challenge. But the in-ground beans were looking good. no surprise. And something I want to add to that is it's something to be expected, because if you are growing in a small container, whether it be a flower pot or a food container like I had used, you do have limited space. So it's no surprise that my in-ground bed, especially when the rain started coming and the environment was just very good for these noodle beans, the in-ground ones were going to be healthier and better than my food containers, because limited space, that means limited water, limited nutrition, and limited space just to grow, because they need their root system to spread out. So I wasn't too surprised. And I was correct, because on June 24th, that's when it really went downhill. The plants were not looking their best at all. The Guyana long bean was trying to produce more beans, but the plant wasn't healthy. The Thai soldier long bean still stayed like a small bush, but it had tipped over. I tried to lean it up against the trellis. It just wasn't doing anything. And my watermelon, my super hybrid that I've been working on, that was actually last year's single seed challenge. That was a big fail. Is it irony? I don't know, but funny enough, that watermelon plant took over the entire single seed challenge of this year. It just took over the whole watermelon. I even had watermelons forming around my this year's noodle bean single seed challenge, which I thought was hilarious, because last year the watermelon was a complete fail. So I just let that space go just because I thought that was, I don't know, kind of a neat little lesson in life. You know, sometimes things don't look good one moment, and give it time, sometimes a long time, and it starts looking good again, or just the outcome is not going the way you think. So I thought, I'm just going to let it do its thing, both the noodle beans and the watermelon. After seeing what was happening to the single seed challenge area, I did check on my in-ground noodle beans, and I did notice that the Thai soldier long beans were actually starting to grow and really branch out and just beginning to form their beans. And it was not a bush type. It was covering the trellis, and even right now, a few months after, it is just going way beyond. And a quick note with the in-ground noodle beans, I did have an order of where I was planting them, so that way I could tell by as they were growing what bean was going to be what. And long story short, I just kind of lost track what I was doing because I was filming and all that. So I didn't know which was which for a while. I just had to look at the beans being produced. But at this time, the in-ground beans were flourishing, and the single seed challenge, not so much. So here we are today, the middle of August, and I can tell you, and you probably already guessed it, is that our single seed challenges are done. No more beans being produced. The plant itself is just dead. The watermelons are still going around it. Actually, I will say the watermelons that you did see in the video here, they did end up splitting. I do have another watermelon or two out there now. I'm hoping they'll make it through, but you just never know what's going to happen with a single seed challenge. That's half of the fun, documenting what takes place. So now my thoughts about everything that has happened. Did it go the way I thought it would? No, it did not. So I understand how food containers or growing in small containers can go. As I probably mentioned before, you have a root system that is constrained. It has limited water, nutrition, that sort of thing. In general, it's not going to be as vigorous as an in-ground bed, as long as your in-ground garden bed is healthy, of course. But I really thought I was at least going to get a decent harvest. And as you can see, I did not. I was really expecting, to have, a little trickle of beans, like here's a couple beans here and there, and maybe have a big harvest. But really, each plant only formed a few beans, and that is it. You can see here that the Guyana long bean produced only 3 beans, but 2.3 ounces. And it was only about 2 harvests. Whereas the Thai soldier long bean produced 7 beans, 3 of them being a smaller bean, at a total of 1 ounce. And the Thai soldier long bean harvest was spread over an amount of time, but still that wasn't a big harvest at all. I was really expecting a larger harvest. Now, could it have been that the containers were too small, and that's possible. I also know that I didn't water as often as I should have. I mean, I did pretty well. I did pay a lot of attention to them, but you know, it's summertime. The heat is intense. I admit there were times I had to run out there because I completely forgot and checked the food container. It was pretty dry, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But noodle beans are a drought-tolerant plant. I'm not saying you should just not water them and not care for them, but when they do go through a drier spell, they can bounce back better or hang on just a little bit more. But maybe the containers were too small. I really didn't expect the Thai soldier long bean to stay a bush type. I was shocked about that. Again, was it because it was in a food container? I don't know. And I do believe in growing food in food containers. You can actually get decent production as long as you have the realistic expectation that you are growing in a smaller space and that you need to be up on your watering, up on the nutrition levels in that container. But also your success is going to determine by what you are growing in those food containers and what variety. So maybe the Thai soldier long bean just couldn't handle being confined in that space, because even though it was labeled as a bush bean, it never grows that way for me. Like I said, the in-ground ones that are in my garden now, they are well past the trellis. They branch out in multiple places, and it's a very strong plant. So maybe that little food container just couldn't give it what it needed, so it stayed compact. But you can, like I said, grow in food containers and do very well. Perhaps if I was in the fall season when I grow my more common bush beans, like actual bush beans, I probably would have gotten a larger harvest than I did with my noodle beans, because it is a bush bean plant. Perhaps the food container could contain it better and support it better than what I had going on with the single seed challenges. It just wasn't the right variety, perhaps. I was also interested to see that new bug or possible pest that was hanging around on my Thai soldier long bean. I don't recall seeing them on the Guyana long bean. The Guyana did have the aphids for a little while, and the aphid damage did get worse as time went on. But yeah, new bug. If you know anything about what it could be, let me know, just because, is it good? Is it bad? I just don't know. Never saw it before. Couldn't find it on the internet. Going back to the production of the beans just for one moment. Yes, like I said, I thought I was going to get a larger harvest and didn't. But what I did notice that was interesting was I did get more beans from my Guyana long bean with just a few fruits from the plant than I did from my Thai soldier bean, where I had more of a harvest, but they were smaller fruits and overall a smaller yield. But it was interesting because the Guyana was kind of I'm just going to say like a one and done. Here's your harvest. You got more beans. Whereas the Thai soldier, it was done over time, and it was less beans, but just more of a spread out harvest. So that was something interesting to take note of. And just for you as well, when you are planting in your gardens, take note of varieties that you grow, because sometimes it looks amazing to have that big harvest coming in with baskets of food, and in real life, maybe in your situation, that's too much food at once. Maybe you want a variety that does pace out its harvests over a time period so you're not overrun with too much food at one time. So just something that I thought was interesting in this side-by-side experiment with the garden. And in my in-ground noodle bean bed right now, it looks like my Guyana long bean in there has died. I might have had one plant. I'm not 100% sure because, like I said, I kind of lost track at what I planted because of everything that was going on at the moment. But there is one plant in there dead, a possible other one going on, and I can tell one of them is absolutely a Guyana long bean, whereas my Thai soldier long beans are continually producing. So I thought that was an important note to take, and that's something that I really did want to notice in this experiment. It's interesting to see the vigor of an in-ground plant, or at least a plant grown in a larger raised bed, over a small container, small food container or whatever, and just see how much food you get from each. But don't count the food containers out. I think that's everything. It definitely did not go the way I had planned. And I already have an idea of what I want to do for next year's single seed challenge, so stay tuned. Hopefully you try it, the single seed challenge, whether you share it with others or just do it for yourself. It is a really neat experience for us gardeners to focus on how a plant grows and everything it goes through. And you'll learn a lot along the way. I hope that the conclusion in this video did not discourage you from growing in containers if that is what you would like or need to do, because like I said, there's a lot that you can grow in food containers too. But if you want to see some success, check out this video. I go over what I did, why I did it, and how it went. And spoiler alert, it did pretty well. Still check it out because it can help you out and all these other videos too. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.